Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Asadul Maturia, and now I'm going to present my presentation about the journal, and the title is Environmental Education Outcomes for Conservation: A Systematic Review. People are pressing against planetary boundaries in ways that may permanently alter systems critical for sustaining life on Earth. Rockstrom 2009 and Stefan 2015. So, to carry out Earth Defense, the researchers conducted research on environmental education outcomes for conservation, a systematic review. Scientific researchers say that sharing findings and decisions is not enough to solve complex environmental and conservation problems. A synergetic space is needed where this action can cover the social, political, and economic environment. Environmental education is a strategy that creates synergistic spaces, facilitating opportunities for scientists, decision makers, community members, and other stakeholders to meet. Environmental education foregrounds local knowledge, experience, values, and practices often in place-based settings. In these ways, it encourages numerous groups, including those that may be marginalized, to interface productively with research. By definition, environmental education encompasses approaches, tools, and programs that develop and support environmentally related attitudes, values, awareness, knowledge, and skills that prepare people to take informed action on behalf of the environment. The goal of this research is environmental education aims to take positive environmental actions. Over the past few decades, policymakers, funders, non-profit leaders, and others have consistently called for evidence on how environmental education produces tangible improvements in environmental quality and helps achieve conservation outcomes. Researchers and practitioners have echoed calls to investigate the relationship between environmental education and immediate environmental outcomes, such as improving air quality, eradicating invasive species, or increasing targeted population of tree and species. Simultaneously, stakeholders have called for a more nuanced understanding of the processes and mechanisms that underpin these contributions. Identifying and determining the ways in which environmental education leads not only to conservation action and behaviors, but especially to real environmental improvement requires many steps. Environmental education addresses diverse issues such as climate change and loss of biodiversity, which are mired in complexities inherent in sociological system. Understanding and contextualizing the success of environmental education programs often involve measuring short and medium-term outcomes. For example, environmental awareness, self-efficacy, critical thinking, followed by tracking outcomes that take more time to develop and manifest. Pinpointing the influence of environmental education programs can be further complicated by the fact that such programs are frequently nested within larger conservation or education initiatives. Quality environmental education involves many partners and stakeholders collaborating in research implementation spaces where science, decision making, and local culture and the environment intersect. Environmental education evaluation and assessment often struggle in this productive but complex space. Researchers have examined environmental education outcomes in a variety of contexts with a varying audience. In a review, 206 residential environmental education programs Ardoin found that the desired outcomes included environmental awareness, attitude skills, and behaviors, including citizen participation. The review of Stern of 66 studies evaluating youth environmental education programs found a positive correlation with outcomes of knowledge, awareness, skills, attitude, intention, behaviors, and enjoyment. Ardoin reviewed 119 studies on key 12 environmental education programs and reported 121 disparate outcomes grouped categorically into the domains of knowledge, disposition, competence, behavior, and uh, personal characteristics. In their systematic review of climate change education, Monroe 2000 and 2017 described a program that measures knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. The review of Thomas of uh, 79 evaluation of conservation education programs reporting cognitive, behavioral, social, and ecological outcomes. Thomas also discusses the need to improve the relationship between environmental issues addressed by programs, program effectiveness, metrics, and actual outcomes that are measured and reported. Taken together, these reviews suggest various expected outcomes for environmental education, but they also show that some programs explicitly articulate environmental quality of conservation improvement goals. Environmental education programs are often designed to influence knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. As a result, researchers measure change in the area rather than documenting direct ecological impacts. Thus, questions remain about to what extent and through what channels environmental education can improve environmental quality. To answer this question, researchers conducted a systematic review of the role of environmental education in developing, supporting, and sustaining individual and community environmental actions that have a direct and positive impact on environmental quality and conservation outcomes. And then I would like to read about the method of this research. In this study, researchers used mixed data. That means it used quantitative and also data qualitative. Qualitative data, I mean. Considering the dual nature given, namely the first quantitative and the second qualitative, this type of synthesis can accommodate results from different research designed. Uh, uh, it involves flexible analytical tools that can be adapted to fit the data and research question. The researchers followed established procedures for a systematic review of the scientific literature as well as the literature in particular. First, researchers identify appropriate search terms to capture empirical research examining environmental education and conservation quality outcomes. And then researchers selected terms based on Rockstrom 2009 with planetary boundaries which are highly cited, relevant to the policy synthesis of pressing environmental issues. Guided by this categorization, we used the following list of environmental related searches terms: climate change, global warming, biodiversity, species richness, species diversity, species loss, nitrogen, agriculture, phosphorus, ozone, and oceans, freshwater, water quality, and uh, aerosols. Researchers combine search in seven EBSCO-host databases, that is Academic Search Premier, Africa-wide information, British Education Index, Education Full Text, Environment Index, Eric and Greenfield, previously identified as relevant to work in the environmental conservation and education fields. In the first round, the 100, 1953 article failed to meet the three criteria decision. The researchers excluded those studies from further review. Common reasons for exclusion are that the study did not implement or assess an environmental education program, was not published in a peer-reviewed journal, or did not report or on primary research. Researchers obtained 4,437 citation records published between 100 1997 and 2060, then deleted in the EBCOhost engine and imported some records into Jotero's bibliography management program. Researchers manually identified 339 additional duplicate records and leaving 2,239 records for review. Next, we reviewed each of the 2,239 abstract for relevancy using a decision tree based on three inclusion criteria. In the sample, researchers retained recent studies that the first one is implemented an environmental education intervention, and the second one is assess the intervention, and the third one is describe inclusion of conservation related outcomes. To test the decision tree, we randomly selected 50 records to review in a preliminary round. 3 review team members read each abstract for the 50 citations and applied the decision tree principles. The first one is reviewers agreed on the inclusion principles for 44 out of the 50 citations. Based on an acceptable level of agreement, we commended vetting all 2,239 records with at least one member of the research team reading each abstract to determine whether to include a study for further review. There are many data changes that are challenging to achieve the real impact of this research. For remaining 286 articles, researchers found full text version and team members read each article to see if after a full review the study met the criteria. At this time, researchers conducted a baseline quality check, ensuring that the included studies adequately described their method and provided data to support the findings. The researchers verified that each study contained a section of text that identified the method or methodology used to design and implement the lesson. The researchers also confirmed that each study presents some form of empirical data. After a full review, researchers excluded 153 articles and leaving 133 in the sample. During coding, they considered that an additional 2018 articles did not meet their inclusion criteria, and the final sample included 105 articles. Okay, now I'm going to answer the question from my lecture. In your opinion, what is supportive and conducive learning environment like, and how do teachers to provide such a good learning environment? In my opinion, a conducive learning environment environment is an environment that provides comfort for those who want to learn, and the way teachers provide a good learning environment is to motivate students. Okay, maybe that's all I say. I'm so sorry for my mistake, and I do realize for my mistake because it's hard for me to read the journal and to understand the journal, so I'm so sorry for that. Thank you so much.